in radio.com.
Good evening and welcome to Dear Dad on InRavio.com. I'm Dan.
And I'm Tony.
And it's Thursday night and you are back once again to the Dear Dad show. And tonight we're going to be talking about parenting styles in all different aspects. We're going to look at all different aspects of how parents do pretty much everything when it comes to their children, when it comes to their spouse and the relationships they have, and what's right, what's wrong, and maybe it's not right or wrong, it's just different. And we'll try and delve into some of the differences of parenting styles. And some people have really, really strong feelings about one way, and others say, no, you're wrong. So
Right.
we'll look at that. How are you tonight?
Good.
Good.
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I know last time we talked about your kitchen going up, and that's moving along, so we're going to move forward too.
That's good.
One of the reasons this came up, and one of the reasons I decided to do this.
Our new topic.
The new topic, the parenting styles.
Okay.
Well, you thought I was...
I
all over the place?
I even got lost there for a second. All right.
I know where I'm going.
Okay.
I have the wheel, but we'll get there. Okay. Driving the boat. So one of the reasons I thought about doing a show on this topic is just recently in New York, there was a man who 2 years ago at a party, his 9-year-old son cursed out another adult. And at the party, with an open hand, he swatted the child on his rear end.
Right.
And someone took exception to that, and he was brought up on charges, and in the local county where he's from, he was convicted of child abuse. That went to the appellate division of the state Supreme Court of New York State, and the ruling, the actual wording was that they found that using that type of corporal punishment was reasonable use of force and did not constitute excessive corporal punishment, and he was completely cleared of everything.
So
spanking.
One group said you shouldn't spank them with
Right.
your open hand, and the
Shouldn't touch him in any way.
shouldn't touch them in any way. And then the other court ruled that it was acceptable.
That was an acceptable form of corporal punishment.
The crime, the punishment fit the crime, is what it comes down to.
And I think over the years, this is an issue that has changed. It's a very generational thing. I know when I was young, my parents wouldn't think twice about giving us a swat.
Right.
Going back even further, like say when my grandparents were young, it was even more, it was almost planned. You did something wrong, when your father comes home, he gets out the belt, you
Right.
go in the room, he puts you over his knee, and it's like a planned sentencing.
But they had a bunch of children, so if they killed off a couple, they'd have some extra.
Yeah, I guess that is true.
Maybe
However,
that's why they had so many children, I don't know.
And nowadays, I think we've got to where there's some newer parents that feel, well, you should never ever use corporal punishment on a child.
But even when we were young, there was the hippies and the free society.
There was some, yep.
Right, and the kids were running around with no clothes on, and then, you never spanked them, you didn't hit them. It was free love,
Right.
and they needed to be who they were, and all that.
I agree. I think it's during our generation that the feeling has changed a lot as to whether to use spanking or not. And it becomes a big issue for a lot of people is should you do it? Even amongst mental health professionals and psychiatrists, psychologists, they don't agree.
Right.
Whether it's, some will say, well, you're damaging the psyche of the child, and others will say no.
Right.
What's your opinion? Did you ever spank your children?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so did I.
Yeah.
I would say it was rare, not because I didn't think I would, but I didn't need to.
Well, I think the punishment has to fit the situation. So, if you say, hey, listen, stay by the car, or you let them out of the car,
Right.
and you say, listen, stay right here, because I need to go get your sister, let your sister out, or whatever, unbuckle the seat, whatever it is, and they take off and they run into the street, or they take off and they run into the parking lot, well, I think they need a very stern warning, okay? And if that means that they need a spanking for that, because, they just can't make that mistake again, because that it could be the difference between living and dying. And if that's how you need to get that message across, yeah.
So what you're saying, and let me just try and
And
see
you have to
if
know
I
your
get this
child.
clear. If you see your child reaching to put their hand on the hot stove or stick a knife in the electrical outlet, you could give them a good smack on the hand, but you wouldn't swat them on the behind for not eating their broccoli.
Right.
Okay. So you're using it more to deter behaviors that could be dangerous,
Yeah, that's
life-threatening,
an
not
example.
just they're not doing what you want them to do.
Right.
You're not going to bed when
Again,
you
because
won't
the
go to sleep.
The consequences for that particular action are different, right? So the consequences for not eating your broccoli are pretty much mild compared to
But
putting
yet
your
they're
hand
still
on a
not
hot
listening
stove.
to you and doing what you want them to do.
True.
But you wouldn't spank them for that.
No.
And we're on the same page.
Yeah.
We're on the same page. I mean, my opinion,
That's
that's
my parenting
something.
style.
And mine also. That's something, if they weren't doing something I thought they should do, like not going to bed on time, then I would discipline them by a timeout or taking away something that they like. You can't watch TV or you can't do something like that, not corporal punishment. But I also find, at least in my parenting style, I needed to use corporal punishment much more when they were younger, because they don't understand a timeout. They don't understand not being able to watch TV. Where if you have a 2-year-old reaching for the electrical outlet, they understand a smack on the hand that means, no, you shouldn't do it. So
Some.
yeah. But I think it gets
And
the
everyone's
message
different.
across quickly.
You have 3, I have 3. They're all different.
Right.
My younger guy was always a little more bold. So
Okay.
with my older one, if you said, that's hot, they'd go, hot. And they wouldn't touch it.
But your youngest one said,
My younger guy
I
said,
want to see for
that's
myself.
hot. He'd go like that.
Right, because I want to
And then
make
he'd go-
sure
And then he'd go, and he'd be like, I told you it was hot. But he just had to find out for himself,
Okay.
So can you beat that into him? I don't know if you could beat that into him. I'm not even gonna, I can't say I tried to beat that into him, because, I'm just not that kind of disciplinarian. But, for some, okay, they respond quickly to a tap.
Right.
Whatever, sometimes a little tap can make them scream and cry. And a big tap, they look at you and they laugh.
Right.
So it's, you're not, you can hurt them, obviously. You're bigger than they are.
Sure.
But
Well, I don't think the point is to really injure them.
But sometimes you need to get their attention quickly.
Right. Now, would that change depending on where you were? In other words, if you were in a, say at a party where this one incident took place, would you spank them at a party?
No, I'd be a little bit more reserved, because You know, you want people to think your children are well behaved.
Okay.
You know, at least I do. And then you want them to think that you're, you know, a parent that's in control.
Right.
So yeah, so you don't want to go off the deep end if they go off the deep end.
And we've all been at the type of parties where you have a parent who probably spanks their kid more than you think they should, and you're sort of like, ooh. But then
and
you have the
parents
kid
that
who's basically
aren't disciplining
pounding
them at
their
all.
hands into the cake and sticking their hands in the juice, and the parents say, "Oh, stop! It's just."
You know, we had just gone out for dinner a couple of nights ago, and table across from us, there were two kids. They were probably around 6 and 8, maybe 5 and 7, something like that. Okay, and you know, Dad was going at his dinner, and Mom didn't have too much control over the kids, and they were a little wild. And my wife said to me, she said, "You know, when we took our little guys out, we always had something for them to do."
Right.
Brought them a game, coloring, whatever. If they started to get a little antsy, waiting for service or whatever in a public place, we would play a game with them. We'd communicate with them in some way to keep them, you know, busy. These two didn't interact with these kids. And these kids were all over the place.
Right.
Okay, just like crazy all over the place. At
So
the end
their
of the dinner,
parenting style was not like yours at all.
right. At the end of the dinner, the father was so frustrated because they wouldn't listen. Okay. When he got out of his seat, the young kid ran over to the next table, put his arm across, knocked all the silverware onto the floor. There was nobody sitting there.
Oh, okay.
Okay. They had some kind of machine that you type in whatever. It had a printer in it. Pulled out the roll of paper and ran with it till he got to the door. And the father grabbed him and dragged the kid out screaming by the arm or whatever and said, "I'm never taking you out again, blah, 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 blah." But you know what? They had an hour to discipline him and get him under control.
Right.
He was just so caged in at that point, and he was being ignored for all that time, that maybe that was the only way he was going to get somebody to listen to him or his attention.
To get attention.
I don't know.
Right. They weren't paying attention.
Obviously, I don't know what his psyche. I don't know what his psyche was, but it was a very difficult scene to watch for a parent, and you know, of course, it was very frustrating for the parents who maybe didn't know, you know, how to handle that situation.
Because there's no real,
didn't look like they understood what was happening.
Kids don't come with an instruction booklet, so to speak. And so that's why parenting styles make all the difference, and what's right for you might not be right for them. And you watching them, you probably wanted to say something. Let me tell you how to do it, but you can't do that
I may not have been right, because I don't understand the children and their condition.
Okay.
We are going to a commercial, and when we come back, we're going to continue talking about children and behavior.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, InRavio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is InRavio.com. For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit hansoncarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered.
Transmission of lice occurs from being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Like catching a cold or the flu.
You have guaranteed peace of mind in every bottle of Got Lice because all of our products are completely natural.
And organic.
But strong enough to cover all your lice removal needs while being safe and effective. Our professional technicians are specially trained with our exclusive proven technique to successfully comb out head lice. We come right to your home at your convenience.
Whenever you want us.
We bring everything needed to perform a successful and complete comb out while eliminating your head lice. And we leave you with our exclusive complimentary products to use for the next 10 days following our treatment.
For free.
Our technicians also check all family members who have been exposed to lice. Please visit us on our website today at gotlice.co or feel free to call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 646-257-0121.
Hello and welcome back to Dear Dad on Enravio.
Yes, where we are talking about parenting styles. Now, before we were just talking about discipline, but now let's talk about a little bit of a different issue. When you have children, there's certain things you need to do to help raise them. You need to reward good behavior, punish bad behavior we talked about. So now we're going the opposite, rewarding good behavior. But also, should we reward everything? Should we praise everything? I mean, there's a lot, and I've seen friends and other people. I'm the type where I appreciate the effort sometimes even more than the outcome, where there's some people that I'm friends with that it's the outcome in addition to the effort. So in other words, I'll give you an example. I was watching a friend's, we were at a soccer game, and the team played good, but they ended up tying. And the kids played as hard as they could, and they just met up with a team that was good, and they didn't win the game. So my response to my daughter was, good game. You did the best you could. You tried as hard as you could, because she really did give her best effort.
Right, that seems
They
reasonable.
didn't win.
Yeah.
But one of the other fathers, his answer, oh, that's BS. They didn't win, so what are you praising them for? Teaching them that a tie is good? No, they need to win. If they don't win, it's not good enough. And to me, that was not my style at all. It's almost counterproductive because, in my opinion, if you give it your all, you did the best you could. We're not always going to win.
Right.
And sometimes
It's not the
all you
last
can
game.
expect,
It's not the last game you're ever going to play.
Right.
So it's a process maybe to refine your skills or improve your team or whatever it is. So I don't know. I don't think there's a danger in rewarding them for doing a really good job or trying their best, even though they didn't win. I don't think you send a wrong message.
As long as they're giving it their best effort.
Yeah.
Now, what if they just mailed it in? Do you reward that? Okay, well, how about I'll give you a different situation.
I would probably answer that in a different way to them.
A different situation. Your child, they win the game. They win 5-0. But your son just, he saw they were a better team and he didn't give his best effort. He knew they were going to win.
I would just say, you know what, you guys are lucky you won. I coached soccer.
So did I.
So I would tell them, you know what, you guys are lucky you won today. It was a sloppy game. You guys didn't give it your best effort, but those guys might have been just a little bit worse than you today. I'm glad we won, and I think you guys should all give yourself a high five, but next time, I want to see a better effort from everybody.
So
and
it's really the effort more than the result.
That's how I would look at it, yeah. We had on one of my teams, we had a guy of a young man, German descent, and his dad was from Germany, and the Europeans really love their soccer.
Right.
Americans, we don't know much about soccer.
Well, I think we're getting much better at that, but go ahead.
Okay. You'll know
Yeah.
more about soccer than I do. And towards the end of one of our games, we were losing, and it was time for for me to put guys in because I want to get it. They were young. These were young 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds. And I wanted to make sure everybody had their playing time, and it was time for me to put a couple of guys in. At the end of the game, guy came over to me and he said, "Hey, why'd you put my son in? He's not your best player, and you had an opportunity to win." And I said, "You know why? Because they're at the stage now where they need to get game time, and they need to learn."
It's
And I
an
wanted to make sure
instructional
everyone,
league.
I wanted to make sure everyone participated. And you never know when the light's going to go on for that guy, that kid,
That you
maybe
need.
he's your son, and he's, maybe he gets the winning goal. I don't know.
Right.
We don't know. He says, "You don't know how to coach. I'm not going to come to these games anymore." And he didn't come the entire year to see his son's games because he was too emotional about the game.
That's
And I could not understand that. And
I mean, I can understand it when you're playing at
didn't make
maybe a
any
high
sense to
school
me.
level or a college level where it is
No, intramural,
right. This
7,
is
8-year-olds.
what they and nowadays even at that level they call it instructional league, which means sometimes they don't even keep score.
Yeah.
It's about learning how to play the game better. And as long as that's what you're doing, everyone should play. Once you get to a competitive team or competitive level, and that's how it's labeled, this is a competitive travel team, well then yes, you would keep your best players in unless you had to take them out.
So I think the answer to reward and praise is situational,
Right.
and maybe age or experience related. Where, if it was a Major League Baseball player,
Right.
and you wouldn't praise him for making the last out, even though it was a tremendously long fly ball. Okay. I know I wouldn't.
Right. Now, just to bring it back maybe a little more basic for some of the newer parents that we might have out there, when you have a very young child, praise and reward can be very different and it can be very effective. Just a very happy, excited smile on your face when a
Sometimes
young
just a thumbs
child,
up,
does something.
as they're running across the field.
Even earlier than that, when they're learning to, say, potty training, which can be a really difficult time. What works as far as reward, some people go out and buy these big expensive things. You don't need to do that. When you have a very young child and you're trying to enforce a behavior like potty training, just get a little chart. And every time they do it, they get to put this happy face sticker, or they get to pick the stickers, and they pick Spider-Man or Barbie, and they get to put that sticker on that chart because they went. That's huge for them.
It's just a little thing.
Well, for us it's a little thing,
Yeah.
but for them,
For
that's
them,
a
it's-
huge reward. And when you talk
Right.
about praise and reward on
Like-
a
like
very
they don't
young
need
child,
$100
no,
from the
they
Tooth
don't, or
Fairy.
they don't need a new bicycle or a new toy.
Right.
Just the ability to put that sticker and say, "I did it." That's huge. And I think, we've gotten into, in many aspects, we've become such a material society that we think, well, no, we got to buy him something really nice. Or, what I did is we would have that chart, and at the end of the week, if they had a certain number of stickers, or say in
Man, you
school.
guys were really organized.
Yeah, in school, if they did good and they got enough stickers or whatever it was at the end of the week, well then you know what, we're going to go out for ice cream.
That's
And you
good.
just get a simple ice cream cone, but it's not the ice cream cone, it's sitting next to dad or mom with the ice cream cone at the ice cream parlor, not scooping out of a tin in the freezer. That's a huge reward for a kid. So when
pretty
you're
good.
working with little kids, people, keep it simple. The time you spend with them giving the reward or having that ice cream, that's more of the reward than the actual object. It's your time. And I think talking back to that family in the restaurant, that's what those kids have been lacking all along, is the time. Because the parents, they're there, but you told me they were doing whatever they were
oblivious
doing.
to what the
They
kids were
weren't paying
doing the
attention.
entire dinner. Yeah.
So all that acting out was they're looking for attention.
Attention.
I want your time. I want you to look at me and say, how was school today?
Yeah.
What'd you do?
Sure.
That's one of my first questions when I come home every day. How's your day? What'd you do? It could be a 30-second conversation, but they know that I'm concerned. And the next question could be, do you have any homework? Well, and...
My kids would come running up to me and they'd say, Dad, look, I lost a tooth. And I'd be, you know what? I got a broken pen cap for you. There you go.
But, okay.
And they'd be like,
but
hey, a broken pen
that's
cap,
it.
Dad, get me a broken pen cap. That's all they wanted. This is just acknowledge that they lost their tooth and you're like, hey, looks
But-
good, man.
That's it. You know, so praise and reward. Don't false praise, because after a while kids get it that it's false praise. And reward doesn't have to be more than just an attaboy, so to speak. You know,
Sure.
you did a good job.
Sure.
I'm very proud of you. That's a word that I find is really strong with children. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of what you did, because kids, just human nature, you want your parents to be proud of you. They're your parents. You want to impress them. You want them to make them feel that you're special. And that's a word that I use a lot. I'm proud of you. Or you did a great job. I'm really proud. And I've used that all along. And again, you know, guys, back in my father's day, it was very difficult when I was young for him to say, I love you. I say it to my kids all the time,
Yeah.
almost after every conversation, on the phone. I'll talk to you
Well,
later.
because, you know, it wasn't manly, right?
Right.
John
I love you,
Wayne,
son.
you ever watch John Wayne movies? Did he ever say, I loved you to anybody? Maybe Maureen O'Hara.
Maybe.
Maybe. But to another cowboy, it wasn't going to happen.
Right.
So,
But that in itself is a reward. Just saying,
Sure.
you know, that's a reward, saying, okay.
so it was difficult for them. But I think we understand a little bit more now.
Oh, absolutely. And it's just generally,
And know your
We
kids.
always-
Figure out what the driver is for them. You'll be able to tell. You'll be able to tell what
they're
gets them to move in the direction for you. You know. So we're going to take a short break.
we'll be
Are
back
we?
with some more parenting styles on
gonna pay some bills.
inradio.com. Let's pay some bills.
Yeah, man. See you in a little while.
This is Joe Larson from the 505 Racing Show, live every Monday night from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Watch as I dive into everything from NASCAR and motor racing, only on inradio.com.
For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit hansoncarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered.
this is Chris and Les Jake, and if InRavio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
InRavio.com. The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, InRavio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is InRavio.com.
And welcome back to Dear Dad, where we are talking about parenting styles. And we're going to change it up a little bit now because of a story that came out recently where a question now that are certain parenting styles a crime? Here's the scenario. A woman who is a single mom, she's on some public assistance, but she needs to work to pay the bills,
Right.
to sustain her daughter, and she has a 9-year-old daughter, and she was working at a fast food restaurant. She would bring the 9-year-old daughter to work with her because she didn't have a babysitter, couldn't afford a babysitter. It would cost her more for a babysitter than she was
going to
making.
make, yeah.
So after a while, though, the 9-year-old really did not want to sit at this fast food restaurant all day long and talk to the mother, and they decided, okay, in the morning I'll let you off at the park, the local park. I'll give you a cell phone in case you need to get in touch with me. I'll be right there. I have a cell phone. It was about 6 minutes from where she worked, so it wasn't that far. And after, I think it was the third day, someone reported, and the mother was arrested, charged with neglect, and her daughter was taken away from her. Is that a crime?
I think 9 is a little young. But then again, you need to know your child as well. And for me, my children are far enough away from 9 for me not to have the best recollection about how responsible a 9-year-old can be. But I will say this.
Well, but I think that I understand what you're saying, but that didn't matter to the law. The law is not going to say,
Nope,
oh, well,
the law
was this
doesn't take-
9-year-old
the
more
law doesn't take
responsible than
into
that
account.
9-year-old?
But if the question is, do I think that we should have someone not connected to the child in any way decide how the child could be treated, then my answer is no. I think that a parent probably knows their child better than a judge or a police officer.
Correct.
Okay, and maybe there's some kind of dividing line in there, okay, where at some age you can't allow them to make this decision, and other, because it's dangerous, and other ages you can allow them to make that decision. So,
In my opinion, this is over-policing.
I could tell you that, not too long ago in our history as a country or even people in general, that 9-year-olds worked every day.
Sure.
And they earned a living and they brought home money for the family and they supported themselves. And a lot of 9-year-olds lived on their own without any parents at all at some point. And so it's not that they can't be capable of taking care of themselves for 4 or 5 hours in a park. It's just that as our society has developed into a society where maybe the politicians are trying to be overprotective.
I absolutely
and being
agree.
too involved with how we choose to raise our children. And that's what our
Because now this woman has a criminal record and lost her child. And I agree with what you're saying. It does make a difference on some of the kids. My kids, who we were always around, and my wife didn't work full-time when they were young, I would say at 9 they were more on the immature side because they didn't need to be. Right. Now, if this is a single mom and she works 1, maybe 2 jobs, I can guarantee you that 9-year-old child is way more responsible than some of the other ones.
Right.
And the mother knows that. The mother knows that at the hint of any issue, she's going to get on that phone and she's going to be able to do it. But they took that right away from her.
Yeah.
They arrested her, so they didn't allow her to do that. I think what, and people will say, well, what if, she could have got hurt or raped or kidnapped? But
All those things are a reality.
yeah, but we're
but
working
they're-
on the worst
but they're
case
also a
scenario.
rarity.
We can't just make all the decisions based on the worst case scenario, or we wouldn't do anything. Well, you could have a car accident on the way to work, so you shouldn't drive because you're probably going to have an accident and get hurt. Or, more kids fall downstairs and get hurt than they do get kidnapped or taken from parks. So should we now, kids can't use steps?
Right.
No, that's ridiculous when you put it in that sense. So I think this probably, in my opinion, was other parents saying, oh, how can she do this? I would never do this. I'm going to call the police.
Right.
And I totally disagree with this. I think at 9, and I probably, when I was 9, in the summer,
Yeah.
I would leave the house about 8:30 in the morning, and my mother knew I'd stay in a general vicinity.
Sure.
I grew up in a neighborhood, and we had friends who had pools, and
No cell
we would
phones.
just go. No, we would go
So
from one
you-
yard to
you
another.
were out all day.
And
My
I would
mother
come
used
home
to
for lunch.
Come home when the street lights go on.
Or when my mother would ring the bell for dinner.
Right.
Had a bell on the back
You had a
porch.
bell?
Yeah, she had a little ding, 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 and we would
Nice.
come home for dinner.
That's great.
But I was 9, and nothing happened to me.
Right.
So have times changed a little? Yes. And do parents need to be a little bit more
But if times,
diligent?
times may have
Yes.
changed, but is the mind of a 9-year-old changed?
No, and that's why this still should not
And the
be a
maturity
crime.
of a 9-year-old, has that changed?
We
Again,
have
I
to
think you
let
need to know your
parents-
kid.
Parent and be able to give them the responsibility. I think that the biggest crime is that this woman now was arrested and lost her child. Hopefully they'll work this out. So,
What would Child Protective Services do if they didn't run interference like this? And there's plenty of things they could be doing.
Well,
It's
we can't get into that topic because
No,
you have Child Protective Services that are taking this parent and making an example, and then you hear of cases that they don't
Kids
have
are
enough
being
manpower
abused
to check on, and they've been
right.
abused for 10
And then
years.
For 10 years, and they say, oh, well, I have 47 cases, so
Right.
I can only see him once every 3
Right.
months.
But yet this one, they could
Yeah.
take care. So that's,
It's,
it also leads to the question, what's overprotective parents? Some parents are so overprotective that they don't allow their kids to do anything.
right.
And then there are some parents who are generally negligent when it comes to watching out for their child welfare. And there has to be a balance.
Yeah. You've got to give them some responsibility as they begin to get older, okay? So again, you have to pick what's right for your child, but it could be something as simple as, it's your turn to put out the garbage, and they have a sense of responsibility, and they can do that, and they begin to build on that. And then when they're out and they're not with you, they can be responsible about things as well.
Right.
But if you let them do nothing, and you trust them with nothing, and you're being so overprotective
Right.
that they won't know how to. Eventually, they're going to be in a situation
Where they
they
right.
need to rely on themselves. Okay, so you need to groom them in
Right.
some way.
And if you watch a young child, as humans, we want to be independent, but we also need to have a sense of security. So if you watch a very young child who's just learning to walk, what's one of the first things they want to do? They want to distance themselves from their parents. So if you're walking with them, they're going to run a few steps ahead of you, look back and giggle. They'll look at you and giggle. Why? Well, because they're showing you their independence. Look at me. I'm on my own.
Right.
You can't hold my hand. You can't. I'm doing what I want to
been
do.
waiting for that.
But yet, if all of a sudden they hear another person come up along or a dog bark, what's the first thing they do? They run right back.
and grab your leg.
They want that security too.
Right.
So they're looking for both. And they need both. And as a parent, you need from a very young age to give them both. You got to allow them to have some of their own
Right.
independence within reason. And every age group, and when they're very young, that can change month to month
Right.
when they're very young. But they need both. They need the security of having a parent, but they need the ability sometimes, and I think maybe after we come back from the next break, we'll talk about that, allowing your child to fail.
Right.
Because that can be really hard to do, but I think sometimes we need to do that.
Hard to watch that.
Really hard.
You know, got to cut the apron strings, right?
Yeah.
But
So
I think what you're saying is you don't think the government should be allowed to determine at what age and what date you need to cut the apron strings.
I absolutely do not.
Right.
I think once we start living that parenting by fear of the worst possible situation, we're going to have a whole generation of children who don't know what to do.
Right.
So, we're going to talk about failure and how you can help your children learn how to fail and come out stronger when we come back after these messages. Come back.
This is Joe Larson from the 505 on Racing Show, live every Monday night from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Watch as I dive into everything from NASCAR and motor racing, only on InRavio.com.
Transmission of lice occurs from being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Like catching a cold or a flu.
You have guaranteed peace of mind in every bottle of Got Lice because all of our products are completely natural,
And organic.
but strong enough to cover all your lice removal needs while being safe and effective. Our professional technicians are specially trained with our exclusive proven technique to successfully comb out head lice. We come right to your home at your convenience.
Whenever you want us.
We bring everything needed to perform a successful and complete comb out while eliminating your head lice, and we leave you with our exclusive complimentary products to use for the next 10 days following our treatment.
For free.
Our technicians also check all family members who have been exposed to lice. Please visit us on our website today at gotlice.co or feel free to call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 646-257-0121.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, InRavio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is InRavio.com.
Hey, this is Chris and Les Jake, and if InRavio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
Hey, welcome back to the Dear Dad Show. This is Tony and Dan, and we were talking about parenting styles, and behavior.
Yeah. And what we were going to talk about now is one of the hardest things for a parent to do, and that's to allow your child to fail. But I think if you don't allow them to fail sometimes, then you're not doing a good job as a parent.
I find it tough.
Oh,
I definitely
it's
find it tough.
really hard because
And you know what? I don't think it's limited to young.
No, this is all, it
It's
expands.
even more difficult when they're older.
Well, I think the difference is when
The
they're
stakes
older,
are higher.
and it's usually bigger failures.
Yeah.
You know, when they're young, you know, watching them fall off the bike or watching them not be able to
Scrape a
accomplish
knee
a
or
task or
something like
something.
that.
It's hard, but as you know,
But you got to let them do that too.
yeah, because
There's no
when
way
do you
around that.
learn your biggest lessons? Is from trial and error.
Sure.
I mean, someone can tell you 20 times the right way to do it, the wrong way to do it, and what's
Sure.
going to happen if you do it wrong. But until you do it wrong and suffer the consequences, you don't get it.
Sure. They got WD-40. You know they started at WD-1.
Right. They didn't.
And it took them 40 failures or 39 failures to get it right. And life is kind of like that.
I mean, Thomas Edison, a famous quote was, it took him like 200 and something tries, and they said, so you failed 200 and something times? He said, no, I found 200 and something ways how not to make a light bulb. But he learned with each time. So,
Right.
you know, sitting back and watching your child do something that you know they're going to fail at. Now, you might not always be able to help.
I find it hard. And maybe I find it more difficult than other parents because I'm always trying to give them advice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always trying to, you know, hey, you know, you don't have to do it this way.
Right.
You can do it this way. And some of them will take it. And you and I, we do the Boy Scouts, and people have watched this before, and they know that. So we're always
Working.
trying to be the guide, okay, and telling people where they shouldn't, you know,
Right.
what mistakes are out ahead of them,
Right.
so they can, or the obstacles ahead of them, so they don't have to deal with that. And you know what? It's not always the best thing.
No.
And I struggle. I personally struggle with that because I always want to tell them, you know, what they don't need to try or need to do.
Right.
And some of them just get it, and the other ones, they don't get it, and it's frustrating to me. I'm like, well, why would you do that when I told you that I already tried it and it failed? But they have to fail.
Right.
And I'm still not totally convinced it has to be that way, and it's frustrating for me.
Yeah. I mean, I learned not so much failure, but I guess it fits in here too with my middle daughter. My middle daughter is very emotional. And that's just a very emotional person, good and bad, happy and sad, all. And I'm a fixer. As a dad, I'm a fixer. I don't want anyone ever to be sad. I want things to work out. I want to fix it. I want to make everything work right. And whenever she would cry, I would have to make her stop crying. That was what I needed to do. If she was sad, there's something wrong, I want to fix it. I want to make her feel better.
That must be your job, right?
Right.
You're the
I
dad.
want to comfort. I want to.
Okay,
And then
I can't disagree.
many years ago, I guess she was in maybe around 8th or 9th grade, and I was trying to comfort her and stop her from crying. I said, oh, it's okay. And she turned to me and said, Dad, sometimes I just want to cry. Let me cry. That's what.
Did that kind of like blow your mind?
Yeah, I'm like, well, why would you
wanna
want to cry? And she says, because I need to feel this feeling right now. I need to feel sad right now. I just watched a sad movie or something I just read or I found out made me sad. I want to feel it. I want to get over it. And by you making me stop, I'm not dealing with it and I'm not going to get over it because you're not letting me.
That's good.
And
That's
to me,
a
that
well-adjusted kid.
blew my mind because that is not something I understood. And so in a way, that's a failing thing. Just let them. Sometimes they need to feel that. They need to get that experience.
And if the feeling of sadness is what she needs to have,
Right.
she was smart enough to know she needed to have that feeling.
And she was brave enough to tell me, to
Right.
say, you know what, you really want to help me? You want to be the best dad you can? Just let me do this then.
Right.
You know, and what you were saying on the other thing, my youngest daughter gave me a similar experience where, you know how you always say, don't do it, don't do that.
Sure.
I don't do that as much as you, because I know you're a little bit more protective that way, but she did something that says, why did you do that? I told you not to, and I told you. Her answer was, I wanted to see what would happen. But I told you what would happen. Yeah, but I wanted to see what would happen.
She
wanted to see for herself what would happen.
Doesn't that drive you nuts?
Nah,
It drives me
but
crazy.
you know what? She learned.
You know? My young guy's like that too.
Yeah, I know he is.
In a way. You know, he's like, you know.
But is that a bad thing?
What's that
It's
big
not a bad
hole
thing.
in my backyard that I can't grow grass in? Oh, well, I did this chemical and that chemical. I'm like, well, why'd you do it? Because I just wanted to see what would happen.
Right.
I mean, what did you expect anything good? I don't know. Maybe he didn't expect. He had no expectation of what was going to happen. He just wanted to see what was going to happen. And I'm not that kind of person, you know, myself. Right. So I couldn't understand it, but he understood it.
And on the total flip side is my oldest one. I guess maybe since he was oldest and first and I was more protective, now he needs more encouragement. Well, not now, I shouldn't say, because now he's a grown man and he's overcome that. But in his middle school years and stuff, before he would try something, it would always be, well, do you think I should? What do you think I should do? He needed the reassurance and encouragement before trying something because he was afraid to fail.
And my older one's like that
And if he
too.
failed at it, am I going to be okay if he fails at it? That was his thing. So yeah, I needed to encourage him to do things, even if he might fail at it. But that was okay. So every child, you need to listen to your kids because you may have 3, 4, 5 kids and they'll all be different.
My wife has a little saying that it's very simple. That she'll throw out to them sometime and says, well, you know, I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to buy a car. Or I think I'm going to change jobs. Or I think I'm going, and my wife will say, well, what's stopping you? Fear? Mm-hmm. Now she throws it out kiddingly.
Right.
But you know what? Sometimes that's the question you need to ask yourself.
Right. Is the only reason I'm not doing this because I'm
It's
afraid
because
of
you're
failing?
afraid of failure?
Well, then that shouldn't be the only reason.
That shouldn't
Nope.
be the reason. That shouldn't be the reason.
Right.
You know, if you're afraid of, you know, injury, if you're, okay, then you have to consider those things. I get that.
Right.
But just fear of failing? No. There is no success without failure.
Right.
That can't be.
Right.
How
And I
could you
like the fact that
distinguish?
your wife did that, because what she's doing two things with that. She's challenging them a little, saying, well, what are you afraid of? And she's also saying, so what if you fail?
Sure.
So what? She's giving them both things they need. She's giving them the kick in the pants, maybe, to get over their fear. But at the same time, she's giving them the reassurance that even if it doesn't work out, so what? It's not the end of the world. And I think that's a very good parenting style that you did there, is to step up and make them comfortable either way.
So don't be afraid to fail.
No.
And don't be afraid to allow your children to fail.
Right. Don't be afraid to be a good parent, because to wrap up tonight's show, I mean, parenting styles are all over the board.
Yeah.
I think the basic thing you need to do is you need to be consistent. You know, the way you do things, whether other people think it's right or wrong, if that's what you're going to do it the same way. Be consistent amongst all your kids. A rule for one is a rule for the other.
Right.
But you do still also need to know the differences in your children. Some ways that you enforce the rule
Some are
or
a
deal
little bit
with
more
it might need to be
responsible,
different
or a little bit
depending
more
on that
mature, even at the
child.
same exact age. There are different maturity levels.
Yeah. Being a parent is a job. It does, you know, everyone says, oh, you're so lucky your kids came out good. No, it's not luck, it's hard work. And if you really work with your kids, but it's not
And
work,
for you
it's the
young
best
guys
job.
and
It's
young,
a great
and young
job.
moms and young dads, it's the investment that you make early on that pay you the dividends when they are older. Mm-hmm. You know, someone once told me, you really don't know what kind of job you've done until they're grown up.
Right.
Now, grown up could be defined at different ages. But there is a lot of truth to that.
Right.
Okay? So you don't know what sank in when they were 6 and 7 years old.
That's right.
But sometimes you find that out when they're 20 years old or 25 years old.
And every parent
that they
wants
got
to
it,
be
or they heard it, or
their
they
kid's
now
best
understood
friend.
it.
Every parent wants to be their kid's best friend.
Yeah.
You don't they need you to be a parent. If you can be their best friend also, that's great.
Right.
But they need you to be the parent. You have to be the
Right.
parent first. Because if you try to be the best friend first, you'll never be the parent.
Right.
Okay, we will see you next week on Dear Dad right here on radio.com. Tony,
Broadcasting to the world.
have a good week.
Hey.
Good night,
Good night,
guys. Thank you.